special guests that are going to be painting with us. These are my sisters, Ayla and Andy Lane. So they're so excited to be painting with y'all and us, and I am so grateful y'all decided to join me today. This week we have been learning about the suffering woman and how she bled for 12 years, and we're going to really express how Jesus changed her life through paints today. For people with colored pencils, you can go to the link below and print out the picture and go ahead and color it. If you want to sketch along with us, go right ahead. But today's sketch is super easy, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. All right, let's get right to it. Ready, girls?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna start our sketch. So this woman was suffering for 12 years. That's like a really long time. If you take your age and you add 12 years to it, think of how old you'll be. That's a long time to be in pain. And some versions of the Bible say that the woman was bleeding for 12 years. Y'all, can you imagine that? That is a lot of pain and that's a lot of suffering. And I imagine people were like, I don't really want to be around her because what if it's contagious? I don't want to suffer for 12 years too. So right now, we're going to symbolize 12 years by drawing 12 lines. The picture you're looking at right now will be the final product that we will do today. I have my canvas horizontal on my easel, and the girls have their canvases horizontal, so you can draw along with us. We're gonna start our first line straight down the middle. So you're gonna look at the canvas, and you're gonna go about the middle. None of these have to be perfect. And you're gonna draw a straight line down. Just like that. Whenever I draw my lines, I kind of go up and down, up and down, up and down, all the way to the bottom. And now it's not perfectly straight, but we will be able to fix that later. So now we're going to separate it into 12 sections. So this is 2. Sometimes fractions are hard, I know. I do that a lot too. And now we're going to split these halves in half. So we're going to take this half and we're going to go about the middle and draw a line down, just like that. And then we're going to go on this half and do the same thing and just go about halfway. And again, these lines don't have to be perfect. I know mine are far from it, but we'll be able to cover these up. So now we have 4. So we're going to have to separate these into thirds, which is kind of harder, but you just have to guesstimate really. So what I do is I see the half and I go out just a little bit on each side. And I'm just gonna start by drawing a little hash at the top. And I'm like, that's about right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and draw my lines all the way down. All the way down. Like so. And then we're gonna do that for each of these. So we're gonna do the same. And you'll notice I use my fingers to do the middle, and you can do that too. I just think I trust my fingers to tell me about where the half is. Now if you have extra pencil marks on it, that's okay, the paint will cover it up. The colors we're using today are different forms of red, and we're using red because it was said that she was bleeding for 12 years. And so, but it's different forms because we want to make sure that we remember it was 12 separate years. They weren't all blended into one year. It was very separate, and she had to do it for that entire year. It wasn't like a choice. She wasn't like, today I don't think I'm gonna bleed. No, she had to do that every single day, and she had to go through that. I imagine like people felt bad for her, but they didn't want to really go near her. When women were bleeding back then, they had to be cleansed after they were bleeding. They had to take like a bath, and it was this whole like ordeal. And they just wanted to make sure that it was like over. But with her, it never was over. She never got to be finished. She still had to suffer for 12 years until Jesus came into town. So I'm finished with my line. We got a good amount. Let's just count them to make sure. I like to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. 12 years. Y'all good? Mm-hmm. All right, so we all got 12 lines. I'm going to take my white paint and I am going to draw a little dot on my canvas or on my palette of white, sorry. Now I have 2 different brushes today. One of them is an angled big brush. If you don't have an angled one, it's fine. I just like my angled one. And then one of them is a medium-sized brush. So we're gonna start with our medium-sized brush, and we're gonna dip the tip into white. And we're just gonna draw along those, we're just gonna draw along those lines.
Stop a second. Okay, she needs to clean off her thing real quick.
Okay.
Go clean it off with a towel.
Towel.
That's all you have to do. If something like that happens, just wipe it off real good.
But at least a tip
So-
into the white.
I'll start over.
Just pick over from where you did your,
Dip the tip into the white.
yep. Okay, y'all ready? Okay, you're good to go?
So I'm gonna dip my tip of my paintbrush into the white paint, and we're just gonna kind of sketch along those lines with the white. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is for when we put the red on, they don't blend together entirely. So we're just gonna go along. This is not a hard thing. Just kind of drag it down. And it's gonna look gray, and that's kind of what we're going for. We're going for like a gray separation. And whenever you need to, just add some more white paint onto your brush and just keep going. We're gonna do this for all of our lines. So today, it was a rainy day, which was kind of sad, because I like when it's sunny outside, we get to spend some time outside. But my family had a leaf race. That was a lot of fun. My leaf didn't win, but that's okay. We did good. So that's a fun thing to do on rainy days. You can have a little leaf race. I love this story because this woman was suffering and no one wanted to be around her. They were afraid it was contagious. But Jesus loved her enough to let her touch him. Like, I feel like if Jesus really wanted to, he could have been like, nobody can touch me, and could like prevent people from touching him. But he allowed this woman to touch him even though he wasn't like ready for it. I think he knew when he said, "Who touched me?" He knew already. I think he wanted her to be like, "I did." And I love that this woman was brave enough to be like, this man is the Messiah and he might be my only hope of healing, because this woman had gone to doctor after doctor and none of them had the cure. It was impossible for her to be cured by anyone but Jesus. And that's the same for a lot of us. Some people have cancer and honestly, it's only Jesus who can save you from that. So we are all hopeful that we can be saved by the Savior. You will notice that sometimes your lines will disappear. Doesn't really matter because most of the line will be there. You don't need to use a lot of white paint, but you can use a pretty good amount. We're just going through the lines. I'm almost done. I got one more line to paint over, and then we will get into the actual color painting of it. I like doing this because the lines are kind of blurred, but you can still see a definition. And I feel like at one point you notice like, oh, the year has gone by so fast. And I feel like she might have been like, why am I still here? Why are these years still going? I can't believe it's been another year. And so I think this is kind of like symbolizing how they were still there, but they kind of like blurred in between. It was just a lot of pain and suffering. I'm just gonna go ahead and stick my medium brush in the water and leave it there for right now. I'm gonna get my big brush and my red paints. So I have 3 shades of paints. 3 different shades. This is my darkest shade, medium, and light shade. If you don't have 3 separate reds, use one red. You can add a little black to make one darker, or you can just add a little bit of white and then a little more white to make a lighter color span. You can use completely different colors if you want. It's entirely up to you, but today all three of us are going to be using some red colors. So I'm going to start with my deep red, which is just my darkest red. I'm going to add it to my palette. We're going to be using a lot of water today to smear the paint down. And it's not an entirely generous amount, but we're still going to be using our water from our paint to wash our paint off. We're going to be using some of that to help the paint go, so we don't waste a lot of paint. All right, girls, ready? So we're going to take our big brush and we're going to dip it into our deepest red. And I'm going to start the farthest, the very first year line, and I'm going to paint just that one inside the line. So I'm just going to paint this first year. I said in the beginning, we don't want to paint all of these the same color, because we don't want all of the years to just mix together. We want to remember that it was 12 long years. And so I'm going to make sure I'm using different colors spaced out, so we just remember that. So I have 3 different reds. So this is my first one. This will be the space for my second one. This will be the space for my third one. And so that means I'm going to color this one, this deep red. Then this one is my second color, third color, deep red. Second color, third color, deep red. So I just marked those so I remember later when I paint them that those are the ones I'm using. So I'm just going to stick with this deep red color, and I'm going to paint all of the ones that I previously marked with the deep red, and I'm just going to paint those. It's okay if you kind of go in or out of the lines that you have already made, because we're going to go back over those with a little bit more white paint once we finish separating all of them, just so we remember that they're all spaced out. We're just painting our lines. Almost done with this color, and then I'm going to move on to my second color. So eventually we'll get to where we're using the medium brush and the big brush pretty much at the same time. I probably won't wash this brush that much. I'll probably stick with just not washing it, because they're all reds and they're gonna get kind of blended together, and eventually it'll just come off as a different red. So we're on the last one. If you don't have a lot of paint, you can dip your brush a little bit into the water and keep painting, but I think we're doing good on our red color, so we're just gonna stick with using solid paint. But you want to spread it out and make sure you utilize as much as you can. It doesn't have to be a deep, rich red color. And like I said earlier, we are using this red color to symbolize that she's bleeding for 12 years. Alright, so I colored all 4 of my dark red lines, and I'm going to move on to my medium red. And it's okay if you're a little bit behind, you can pause the video if you want, but we're going to move on to our medium red color. Put it on our palettes, and then we're going to paint just the first, so the second line actually, sorry. We're going to paint the second line, this crimson color. So just blend it in there. And once you finish painting this, just stop a moment, because we want to make sure that we get this blending down. Okay, so I did my first stripe of my medium red, and now I'm going to make sure I continue this blending process, because we want to remember these are different years, and I kind of want a solid line to remember that. So I'm going to take my medium brush out of the water, and I'm going to dry it off. Now I only have 2 lines right next to each other, and I'm going to get my white paint, and I'm going to add some more to my palette because I ran out. And I'm just going to get a little bit on my brush, just like we did with the first line. and I'm gonna redraw that line. We're gonna see it like blends kind of, but that's okay. So you can see that it's like a definite line, but it blends together a little bit. And I like this effect because I like blended effects a lot. So you can still kind of see the pencil line, and you can see the different reds and like all of that, but you can definitely tell it is an entirely different section. So I'm just gonna leave this out here because we're gonna use it in a minute right after we do all of these. So a little key to remembering which ones to paint right is that since this is the second color, it's gonna come right after the dark red. So we don't even have to like pre-mark it like I did with this dark red ones. We can just go ahead and paint it because we know it comes right after it. Again, you can paint all different colors. You can paint different ways. If you want to change your canvas, you can paint little squares instead of lines. They're all symbolizing the same thing. Now again, I'm going to get my medium-sized brush and make a line. Now I kind of went onto the wrong side a little bit with this crimson red, but that's okay because it's all blending out just like that. We're going to do the second and third line, or sorry, the third and fourth lines, and we're just going to keep doing that. Y'all are doing great. It's already looking great. Now, if you run out of paint, don't worry about it. Just add some more. Sometimes I run out of paint, or you can just add a little bit of water, and that'll make the paint last a little longer. But we do these white lines immediately after we paint the second line because we don't want the paints to dry and not have this blended line. And you'll notice that when we add this third red, we have to do it on two sides before we can move on. One more line. Got a little excited there. Last line. Just paint it down. I need a little bit more red. I don't know where to put it. Just a little bit more red. Not a lot. Almost done with these lines. So I'm just going to finish up this last line with a little bit of white. And these are always like great conversation starters. Like when we get out of this coronavirus situation and you have it hanging up in your house, someone's like, what's that? You get to tell them about the woman suffering and you get to share Jesus with them. So this is a great conversation starter. Just a great chance to share Jesus with people. All right, so again, I'm not washing my big brush, but we're gonna move on to our last red color. And this is a light red. So we're just gonna add it to our palettes. And we're going to do the first line and then I'll instruct y'all what to do. So we gotta do the same thing that we did with the previous ones. We're just gonna add it like so. And again, you don't have to stay perfectly in your lines. It's okay if you go right out of them. But you want to stay mostly in the line, so we have one color. All right, so I finished my first line. Now we're gonna get the white paint from our medium brush, and we're gonna do it in between the medium red and the light red, just like we did with the other colors. I'm gonna kind of wipe it off because it's got a little too much red in my brush, but I'm not dipping it in the water yet. Now I'm gonna get some more white because I want this line to stand out. Just like that. All right. So now I'm gonna do that same line in between this dark red and this light red. And it's just the same thing. It's okay if it blends a little less because that dark red might have already dried a little bit. But we're just gonna make sure that we do all of the lines. So you cannot forget the second line. Just like that. Perfect. Now we're gonna keep doing the lines. So I am 16 years old, and if you add 12 years to my age, that would make me 28. And so I can't even like imagine being sick from now until I'm 28 or just bleeding from that long. That would be so much pain, and I would feel just miserable all the time. I wouldn't really want to talk to people or be around people. I imagine like the first couple months I'd be like, get away from me. But after that I'd be like, why aren't people like talking to me? Like, where are my friends? What happened? And I just feel like I'd be really lonely all the time. And that's just, it's not fun, is it? To feel lonely. So we're almost done with our lines. And I don't really need to add any water yet. I've just been adding more paint to my palette, but if you are mixing your paint colors, then you might want to add some water when you add paint. So I'm just making sure I do my lines. And again, the lines don't have to be straight. They're kind of there just as a barrier to be like, hey, these are very separate. It wasn't just one continuous thing she had to go through. There we go. Alright, last line. Now this one, I only have to add one line because it's at the very edge of the canvas. I don't have to add another line off the canvas. That would be silly. Now sometimes my paint like goes over the edge of the canvas, but I'm not really intentionally trying to paint the edge of my canvas. You can if you want to, but I don't really feel like it. So we're just leaving it for now. Last line. It's looking really good, y'all. Really, really good. Alright, so I finished my thing. I'm gonna rinse off my brushes. Just kind of get the paint off of them because we're gonna do a little design on top of it. When this woman touched Jesus's cloak, her entire life was flipped upside down, and that's in the best way possible. Jesus transformed her life. He made her a whole new person, and it was because of her faith that she was healed. And she was saved by the Son because she knew if she just touched his cloak, she could be healed. And I think we just need to remember that Jesus is so willing to help us and make us feel less lonely inside if we just ask him. And he is always with us, and he wants to be there for us, and he is so kind and loving, and it is unfathomable, which means you can't even imagine how great his love is for you. So, how are y'all lines, girls?
Good.
Looks good. So now we're going to add a design, because when Jesus healed this woman, her entire life was changed, and so we want to symbolize that. I am going to take my white, and it's like Jesus, we're using our medium brush. It's like Jesus just took something clean and he put it in the center of all of her pain. And he just put it there. And her entire life has changed. Nothing was the same. She wasn't broken anymore. She wasn't bleeding anymore. There was no more pain for her because of the sickness. She believed in God enough to the point where he said, I will heal you because of your faith. By your faith, you have been saved. Just like the man who got lowered through the roof and could walk again, his friends believed for him. And by their faith, their friend was saved. And by her faith, she was saved. And so you can see this picture is not the same picture anymore. Because Jesus took something that was broken and bleeding and completely destroyed, and he changed it. And it was because of Jesus' love for this woman. So we're gonna use gold, because gold is a beautiful color and it just symbolizes something happy and sparkly and new and beautiful. You don't have to have all of the lines I have. You can have all of your own lines. You can only have a few. Jesus changes everyone in a different way. And so none of the paintings have to be the same. Like, everyone has a different amount of lines, and that is so beautiful because Jesus changed her in a different way for everyone. It is a symbol. So we're gonna take our medium brush and we're gonna wash it off in the water. And we have our lines here. And it's like Jesus took something and he sprayed it out and he changed it. And so we're gonna use our gold color. If you don't have a gold color, you can use a yellow. And of course you can always use whatever color you want. And this was because of Jesus' love. So I'm going to draw a heart in the center with the gold. And you just curve it and then draw it down. That's how you do a heart. You do a curve and then a line. And then you can color it in. We're gonna come back in a second when it's mostly dry and add a layer. Another layer so it shows up a little bit better. We're gonna come back in a second and add another layer, but this heart just shows how Jesus' love for you is so amazing and different. This heart can be as big as you want or as small as you want. It can be whatever size, shape, color, because this is how you see Jesus' love for this woman and for you. So my heart is just big and full, and it's at the center because Jesus' love is at the center of everything. Because of his love, he gave himself to save us. And that is the most beautiful, loving gift that we could ever receive. So I'm just staying kind of thickly on the paint so that it layers a little bit better. It looks kind of thin, but we're gonna just let it dry for a second, and then we will add some more color. So we see these white lines stretching out, and it's so beautiful that there are white lines, but I'm gonna add gold too. So I'm not gonna start touching the heart. I'm going to start a little bit out, and I'm gonna draw my lines out. And it can be however you want. It can be on the white lines, it can be beside them, it can be anywhere in between. Guys, I love your hearts. It's so creative. And Andy Lane's, yours is so big. I love it. Everyone's is unique and different, and it's All right, so we're just gonna keep going with these gold lines and stretching them out because God's love reaches out towards you and He changes your story with every stroke of His love. And I love how we get to symbolize this, guys. These look so great. I think my heart in the middle has kind of dried a little bit, so I'm gonna add a little more paint so it's a thicker or a brighter gold color. And again, you can use whatever color you want, whatever color is available at your house. So for the most part, it is completely done. I think I will add an extra gold layer later when it's kind of dry. But guys, this is so beautiful and so amazing. God's love is shown in this picture for this woman because He changed her story. He changed 12 years of pain and bleeding just by a single touch. And that's so amazing. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I love how y'all came and joined me today. Thank you, girls. We are so glad that y'all came today, and I will see y'all next week. Bye!